resources which are utilized or resources which are helpful in production of food, right? So today's chapter is almost at the fag end of the textbook, which actually talks about the improvement, and then how can we improve those resources which are producing or manufacturing food for us, or rather which plays an important role in providing food to us, right? So all living organisms require food for their existence, right? So for food, as food provides energy for their growth, development, and body repair. So we are all aware that without food we will not be able to exist, will not have energy, we will not get the sufficient nutrition that we would require, right? We'll not get the nutrients, so our existence will be at stake, will not be able to survive. Okay. Okay, so first and foremost, agriculture is a major resource or a major source of food, right? India, overall, anyways, it's like an agricultural country. The majority of the resource, the majority of the income comes from agriculture. And, we're very proud to say that, when it comes to, because of the quality of soil that India has, almost every part of the country has got a variety and a range of soil. Some are rich in black soil, some states are rich in red soil, right? So there's a variety of soil. That's the reason why we grow a variety of crops. Like there are a few countries which are predominantly, predominantly famous in growing certain groups of crops, but we grow almost all kinds of crops, by virtue of the soil that we have, right? So now the question is that over and over, over a period of years, centuries, actually, we have been utilizing the same land for crop production. So how can we improvise on that already existing system, right? Okay. Sahas, can you use the microphone now? Otherwise, it would be only Srish. Explain what are they. Yeah.
Crops, the crops which are grown in the rainy season or kharif season are known as kharif crops. Example, paddy, soybean, pigeon pea, maize, cotton, etc. Rabi crops. These crops are grown in the winter season or the Rabi season. These are known as the Rabi crops. Examples, wheat, gram, peas, mustard, and linseed.
Correct. So basically, when we say kharif crops, thank you, Sahas. So when we say kharif crops, they are majority of the crops are being grown in the rainy season. Why rainy season? Because these are crops, which require a lot of water to grow, right? We all know how paddy is being grown, correct? Paddy is being actually, kind of, it's kept in stagnated water for a couple of weeks, for quite a lot of time, because the water, they say, as per the studies amongst agriculturists, they say that paddy is the only crop which requires the highest, the maximum number of water during its entire, growth stage. So, the kind of the amount of water that it requires, even soybean, it's quite a dehydrated, as in it requires quite a lot of water, right? So is maize. It requires a lot of water, correct? And the amount of water that these crops require, the farmer or the agriculturist would not be able to supply naturally, as in through irrigation, doing different practices, taking out from the groundwater or from the nearby river. It's just not possible to irrigate the land so much. That's the reason why they rely and they depend on the rains. That is, they wait till the rainy season. That is when actually they grow or they start, sowing the kharif crops. Correct? And by the end of, monsoons, the crops are ready. Correct? Now, coming to Rabi crops are crops which can do away without, these are crops which do not like to be in too much of sunlight. They can do away without, with little water, or, they don't require that much of water. So that's the reason why the farmers choose them to grow during the winter season. That's the reason why they are also known as Rabi crops, right? And the examples are wheat, gram, pulses, peas, most of the pulses, right? Mustard and linseed. So these are all the crops which are known as Rabi crops grown during the winters or the Rabi season. Correct? Now improvement in the crop yield. Now this process, of sowing, taking care of the agriculture, managing the crops, harvesting, selling it outside, keeping some for, for self-use. So this practice has been happening since, years, ages. So now it's time rather, to improve the yield of the crops. So how do we do that? Crop yield can be improved by three ways: crop variety improvement, crop production improvement, and crop protection improvement. So basically you need to work on the variety, production and protection, right? Okay, Srishti, tell me, how can crop variety be a good reason for crop yield?
Yes, so crop variety could be that different kind of crops can require different kinds of nutrients in the soil. So growing a variety of crops will actually make the soil lack less nutrients, and it will grow faster because the thing plus crop rotation and multi-cropping will allow them to grow more crops in the same amount of time, and it also allows the farmer to work for more periods of time.
Correct, very good. So basically when we talk about variety, the variety could include variety within the paddy itself. As in, you can grow different kind of paddies. For example, it could be a basmati, it could be a baskati, it could be a dudeshwar, you could be a, whatever, what do you call, different kinds of rice varieties that you get. So it could be a variety within the crop itself, or it could be a variety which is also known as crop rotation, using different kinds of crops. For example, if the paddy requires a lot of water, maybe next time in the same field, next 6 months we'll grow a legume, which would help in nitrogen fixation, make the soil also a little more richer. Right? Basically, crops with different requirements. So at the end of the year, the soil is not drained out too much, but it is kind of balanced. Right? It's like a lock and key kind of a thing. For example, if the Kharif crop was, asking for more of water, the Rabi crop kind of complemented that, right? That is one. And the second is that, as I said, for example, if somebody is having or growing, has an apple orchard and is growing apple, so maybe, that person can have variety of apples growing. It's just not that Himachali apple or the Shimla apple, but maybe, the Washington apple, or, could have a try out varieties of growing apples. Now comes crop production, improvement in crop production. So when we talk about production, Sahas, when we talk about crop production, what all aspects do we cover, or rather should we cover? Bhumika, you can type in your answers. We'll have a look.
Production, ma'am, could you please
Yes.
repeat? I could not clearly hear.
So what are the aspects that need to be discussed under crop production with regards to crop yield?
Right. So crop yield, the amount of crop per person who's growing, the amount of money needed to grow the crops, how we can increase the yield of the crops, and all. Then we'll have to even talk about the storage of the crops.
Okay. So basically, when we talk about production, so the final product is the harvested product. This is the production, right? So when we talk about the production, there are several things which comes to play, right? It comes from selection of crops or the selection of seeds, right? The kind of land that you have, the kind of fertilizer or the kind of manure that is being used, the irrigation practices that are being done, right? The irrigation practices that are being taken, the kind of machines that are being used. Is the farmer trying to do everything manually, or has he have some, gadgets, or does he have some machines? Does he take some mechanical helps for doing that? The kind of herbs that grows in that patch of land, or the herbicides that's being used, the kind of pesticides that are being used, right? The kind of attack from pests that one can have, right? So there are lot many things which comes into play when we talk about the final product or the production, right? So there are, if, for example, if it's a small patch of land, one can, okay, we also have the different harvesting techniques or the harvesting measures that the farmer employs, right? So basically, right from seed selection, so the kind of seed that he selects, is it a low quality, inferior kind of seed that he has selected by mistake? Or has he paid too much money while selecting that seed? Or has he bought a fungus infested seed? So obviously the production will depend on his seed selection, right? The land that he is using, is it a kind of a dead land that he has used? As in, it doesn't have any much more manure and isn't rich enough? Or has he taken good care of his land when, between crop rotation, there's maybe a gap of 1 month? Has he put green manures? Has he added, more of alkaline bases to make his acidic soil, the pH regular? So there are a lot of things, that needs to be taken into consideration. Fertilizer, does he rely a lot on fertilizers or does he rely on manure? Right? Arnav, good evening. You've just joined. I hope you can utilize the mic. I hope you can use the mic. So basically, we can divide the crop protection into two parts. One is pre-harvesting. Okay, Bhumika, you've written we have to protect the crops from weeds, pests, disease-causing organisms in order to produce high yield. Very right. So, if you ask me, I will divide it into, post-harvest, right, and pre-harvest. I will divide this topic into two, pre and post-harvest. What is harvest? When you're cutting the crop, right? Okay, in pre-harvest, basically the crop is still in the soil. So you can have pests, you can have weeds, you can have certain microbes which can attack, right? And it could be biological also. It could be rain, flood, right? Or drought. It could be several things, natural calamities, right? These are the things from which you have to save your, protect your plant pre-harvest. And post-harvest, when we talk about post-harvest, it is mainly the storage part of it. So when we talk about the storage part, you will have to make very good granaries, right? In these granaries, they could be metal granaries, they could be made out of mortar and bricks, right? But they have to be very good granaries. You will have to pump in maybe nitrogen or carbon dioxide into the, gunny bags or the granaries, so that, there's no oxygen left. More the oxygen, more the spoilage. You also have to check for pests. You have to check for rodents. And of course, microbes. There could be a lot of fungal infection. There could be a lot of other infections, infestations basically, which could attack or which could spoil the harvest, spoil the grains post-harvest, right? This is at a crop stage, when it is still crops. This is post-harvest, when it is at the stage of grains, seeds, whatever you say, right? So both are equally important. Okay. Now the practices involved in farming can be divided into the following three steps. What are the three steps? Choosing appropriate seeds for planting, nurturing the crop plant, and protecting the growing crops and minimizing the loss of harvested plants. These are exactly the three that I had discussed. When we talk about nurturing again covers a lot of things. As I said, how you water the plant. It's not like, you just water. There are so many crops, you just water it once in 2-3 days and you're done. You must be thinking that, this gallons of water that I did, irrigated. It's not that, it all depends from crops to crops. There would be certain crops which would require irrigation once a day. There would be certain which would require twice, at times even thrice a day.